Chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Sanford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Jenkins, I don't know your story, but based on what I just heard, if you walked in an apartment where Ebola was there and somebody had just died, I admire your courage, your humanity, your leadership in terms of just walking in without glove in hand and shaking hands with folks and giving them a hug, and as the case might have been. So I admire that. But I want to go back to Dr. Leahy's comment. Well, in fact, everybody said the same thing. Everybody said you can't get this disease unless it's from an affected party, a human contact. You're not going to get it out of the drapery over here. You're not going to get it out of the floor. You're not going to get it through the air, right? I mean, everybody has consistently said that. And yet what we just heard was 140 55-gallon drums of hazardous waste were taken out of the apartment, which is to say, unless the guy lived in a mansion, and I don't think he did, they flat out stripped that apartment, in essence, down to the studs. Mm-hmm. I mean, they took out the carpet, they took out the drapes, they took out everything, threw it in, and you had Class A hazardous material wherein you're having to fight permits in terms of getting it out. Again, the folks back home are saying this doesn't connect for me. It's the same disconnect. We're told you're completely safe, but by the way, we're going to go to this guy's apartment that died, and we're going to strip it down to the studs. I mean, 140 55-gallon drums would fill this entire floor area right here. So which one is it? Is it really more hazardous than we think, or did they make a mistake by going to a degree of overkill, if you will, and dragging out 140 55-gallon drums?
I can start, and then if any of the other panelists want to chime in, that'd be great. No, we feel confident in the science that this is spread through contact with bodily fluids.
Understood. Then why all the 55-gallon drums?
The challenge was in this apartment. If he threw up, if there was other bodily fluids and curtains, etc., it had to be just taken care of. There was a perception related to the apartment. No one was going to rent that apartment again unless you had done all you can do in order to decontaminate it, because it was a level A agent.
You're not in the real estate business. You're not worried about who's going to rent the apartment next.
No, but we needed to decontaminate the apartment, do everything we could to fully decontaminate the apartment.
Okay, but then you're going back to the decontamination side, which is then it takes more than as I've written it down, physical contact with affected party. That's what's consistently said over and over and over again.
I think most of the leadership was concerned about blood, bodily fluids, other excretions that could have been in places in the apartment, such as in the bathroom or rugs or things like that. The data really show that the Ebola virus is very wimpy on surfaces, that it really goes away very quickly. It doesn't live very long at all. But if there's tissues or bodily fluids, I believe there was a conscious decision to overly decontaminate and overly waste removal, because this was the first patient in the country. It was approached with an abundance of caution. And for example, a toilet can be decontaminated, but do you want to sit there and decontaminate the toilet and have every question, or you just want to pick the toilet up, put it in a drum, and get rid of it and be done? We had the luxury of only having one apartment to do, and I think with an abundance of caution.
Understood. Let me just follow, because I see him down to a minute.
Sorry.
Same question then in a different light, in terms of the disconnect that I seem to be hearing from folks back home. A number of y'all have talked about public health and the need to prioritize spending. We're well on our way to spending about $1 billion in these three countries in sending in the military, which is a very expensive way of dealing with a problem. If, in fact, it's not as lethal and could it be handled by healthcare professionals rather than cranking up, C-17s and sending them across the Atlantic, why not have healthcare professionals do it rather than spending $750 million, because we could then allocate to some of the resources that Sheila Jackson-Lee was just alluding to, or some of the other resources that are around the world, given the crop up in Spain and other places.
Sir,
Can I take a stab at that? It is extremely lethal. 50% of the people in the world who get this disease die. The disconnect in what the visuals are on television is this.
Yeah.
My contact and other officers' contact were with people who are being monitored to see if they become symptomatic. Their bodily fluids cannot transmit Ebola. The men in the hazmat
I
suits
understand that. I've run out of time, but I'm still curious as to, are we doing overkill then, spending $1 billion with military rather than having healthcare professionals? But I see I've run out of time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.